Phone call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
And that I be allowed to address the Senate for up to 10 minutes in morning business.
Without objection.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, almost 7 months ago, Senator Conrad from North Dakota and myself began an adventure, attempting to convince this body and the body across the hall to create a financial markets commission to study and do a forensic audit of what happened to our financial markets in 2007, 8, and 9. All of us recognize we've been through a catastrophic financial collapse with many potential components contributing to the gravity that we've gone through. And it's not over yet. I come to the floor today, first of all, to commend Leader Reid and Leader McConnell, Leader Boehner in the House, Speaker Pelosi, and the others who had the authority under the legislation for announcing their appointments today of their commissioners. I want to particularly commend the majority on the appointment of Ms. Bourne to the commission. It was her outspoken words prior to the collapse that should have warned us better, or we should have paid more attention to, about the over-leveraging of our economy and the underwriting of risk. But nonetheless, the collapse has happened. The recession is here. Unemployment in my state today topped 10%, and we're seeing predictions that it'll top 10% for our entire country within the days ahead. It is critically important that we find out what went wrong, what the contributing factors were, and recommend back to the Congress of the United States those actions we need to take to ensure that this never happens again. For my children and my grandchildren, if I have one last legacy to leave, it's to say when it was on my watch in the Senate, we found out what the problem was, we corrected our past errors, and we gave a little bit more security to their investments and their future in the days to come. Now, Mr. President, I have my opinions as to what went wrong, but I know I'm not smart enough to have all the answers. I know there are others who think they know what's gone wrong, and we already have from the White House as well as from the floor of this Senate, some who are making recommendations over creating czars or authorities or things to address the financial collapse. It would be a mistake beyond words for us to do that now in the absence of all the facts. This commission has the authority, the money, and the power to get to the bottom of the problem. We gave them a $5 million budget, an 18-month timetable, and subpoena powers. As evidenced by those that have been named today, just from the appointments of the leadership in the House of the Senate, we have some of the best financial minds in the country, not elected officials, not members of government, some former servants, but some of the best minds in the business to begin the process of studying the collapse that began in 2007, continued through 2008, and in a protracted way continues today. It is important that we get all the facts. As I've said many times when I've talked about this subject, there's plenty of blame to go around. Members of the House in 1999, like myself, who have voted overwhelmingly for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, that very well could be one of the things the Commission finds was where we had too much of a deregulation in financial services. We ought to know that, and we ought to know what contribution it may have had. I have grave suspicions over the role in which Moody's and Standards and the rating agencies played. In fact, as I've looked at it, I wonder why should the agency that rates the security be paid by the creator of the security? They ought to be paid by the person buying the security if they're looking for a surety. And why weren't credit default swaps regulated? Why did they fall outside the purview of the government? And what about FASB Rule 114 that is hurting so bad in the community banking system today because of the devastation of mark-to-market on real estate? Congratulations on the change by FASB of Rule 157, which has lessened some of the pressure on mortgage-backed securities and the valuation of those, which has helped some of our bigger institutions. But there are lots of things out there that could have gone wrong and some that did. We need to have all of them on the table. We need to have the best minds in the business looking at them. And we need to have a bipartisan, unfettered, comprehensive recommendation on what we need to do in this government to ensure to the best of our ability that it never, ever happens again. And I urge the President, and I urge our leadership, to be cautious in moving ahead regulatorily without first getting these facts together. We're in an environment now where everybody does know what the rules are as they exist, and in the few months ahead, long before this commission reports, a lot of decisions are going to be made that are going to be dependent upon and predicated upon the environment that the investment community thinks they're operating in, or at least knows they're operating in today. We have some bumps ahead of us. The commercial mortgage-backed securities are the next shoe to drop in this economic compromise that we've been through. And although those mortgage-backed securities are not in trouble as much because of their underwriting as they are the effects of the poor underwriting of the residential mortgage-backed securities that caused the collapse of those markets and the value of those securities. That comes ahead of us. We have another wave of adjustments in terms of residential mortgages. That's not over. And we have the pending, very bad problem of the number of mortgages in this country in foreclosure are now more performing good loans at one time than they are subprime originated loans at their beginning, meaning the unemployment rate and the protracted decline of the economy is contributing to people who were paying and were performing, falling behind on the payments in their house, and now because values have declined, recognizing they're better off to leave than to try and sell the house because they can't get anything out of it. We must put an end to this decline, and we can best do it by having all the facts necessary at our disposal to know what went wrong when, who did wrong where, and what we need to do as quickly as possible to prohibit it from ever happening again. I spent 33 years of my life in the private sector, all of it in the real estate business. I know lots of people in that business around the country, and I know how much the families they represent, the customers they've had, and their families themselves have suffered in the months past and the pending suffering that's yet to come. This is the most important thing this Senate and this Congress can do, is to do a forensic audit and a diagnosis, let the chips fall where they may, and then make the corrections necessary so it never happens again. So I am happy to come to the floor today and commend our leadership for their expeditious appointment of highly qualified and talented people. And I hope all of us in this body will pay close attention to what they say and what they do, and not rush to judgment thinking we know the answer, when all of us really know this commission is essential in finding out what really did happen and what we really do need to do. Mr. President, I yield back and suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.